that was filled out, and lo and behold, come about the second week of December, we suddenly were informed that we needed to have an average over the 2 weeks of 35 in a hybrid model. If we were to go fully remote for an extended period, it would have to go to 40 over the 2-week period. So a lot of districts scrambled. So a lot of districts scrambled to do that and to meet those criteria. The synchronous learning can be a combination of in-person with staff in front of you. It does not necessarily have to be total instruction time. Recess time can count in that, like having that face-to-face and interaction with an adult. And then also the synchronous part, like when we have Wednesdays and kids are engaged at the elementary and middle schools for half the day, that amount of time counts. Our instructional sort of review period in the afternoons for the middle school and high school, that amount of time, it also counts. So we have done that. And so this is part of the report that was returned to it. Basically, this is the only information that was on the report besides their definition. The Woburn Public Schools were cleared. We were able to meet the criteria that they set because it is set for an average for the district. So in looking at grade 1 and 4, you can see that we're in schools synchronously, either live in person or virtually, with students 35 hours over a 2-week period. In the middle school, it's 31, and at the high school, it's 43. The reason for the high school being as high as it is the full-day Wednesday schedule that you've heard the students talk about when they've presented. And so it comes out to an average over 2 weeks of 36 hours for the district.
Dr. Wells.
Yeah, so why is the 7th grade lower than the elementary?
I think it's because of the way the scheduling is done. We have to have passing time that's added in there. So when we end up, we had to round to half hours. So when we do that with passing time and other things that happen, there's less time that's in the day. I've looked at this many different ways to try and figure it out. You know, if it goes over 15 minutes, we have to report it as a half hour. But if we're only in person for 5 hours, then it's 4.5 hours of instructional time and a half hour of non-instructional time. And then what happens is that it doesn't add up to the number of minutes that they're looking for. So it's a matter of sort of, if we could do the actual minutes and not round to the half hour, I think that number would be higher.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just go, we had discussion yesterday, we won't relive it, but this idea, the middle school, the area needs work and try, I think we got to figure out things quickly because, not quickly, but we have to, that's the area that I think the school committee we think needs to be delved into. And, when I see numbers like that where they're getting 4 hours less, according to this in-person instruction, I get a little worried but it is, this is a unique year, but just keeps, every time I see the middle school, I'm always thinking they're being deprived,
it's
for lack of a
perplexing,
better word.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Mr. Lipsick?
I also just want to clarify something just from a sort of an on-the-ground education perspective, which has annoyed me about the way that DESE has rolled this out from, in terms of the structured learning time from the moment it was announced, which is that the way that they are defining structured learning time is very different from how educators would define it, right? I mean, we're talking about only direct students listening to or being in person with teachers as the only kind of active education that there is, and that's incorrect, right? I mean, asynchronous learning can be active education, and it is on a very regular basis. So I think that this represents what DESE asked us for and what DESE is requiring, but I think it's an incomplete picture of the amount of active education that's going on in our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lipsick. Just to the committee's information, I asked the administration to clarify this because I wanted to make sure that Woburn is in fact compliant with DESE's Friday afternoon regulations. So I appreciate the explanation. And what I'm gathering is that Woburn is in compliant with the promulgated regulations in this regard. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Great. Okay, moving on to staff and family survey results. Dr. Crowley?
Sure. So prior to the winter vacation, we pushed out a survey to our families and to staff to sort of get a gauge on how we were doing. I think here in the committee, we've talked about, we think we're doing pretty well, but is there feedback that could guide us into the 2021 part of COVID era reality? And so I wanted, because we asked the question to everybody, I wanted to share the results. And so the family questions, you'll note that we tried to use the similar questions that we used last spring because it made sense to us to see if we used last spring's results as a baseline and the themes. So the themes are connections and support, consistency, and organization. And so the next slide, I think what you'll see is that we're doing pretty well as it relates to the feedback that we got. And so we had 1,098 responses, which is a pretty good response rate, particularly right near the holiday season. And as it relates, and I know you can't see it, so I'm going to say it. So that the question was, have connections and supports improved? And the 90.7, the blue is yes. 90.7% of 1,098 respondents said yes, the connections and support have improved, and 9.3% said no. As it relates to consistency, for example, are we providing clear expectations? Have we seen improvements in this area? 86.3% said yes, and 13.7% said no. And has the organization improved? Predictable in-person and online scheduling of classes, and 89.3% said yes, it's improved, and 10.7% indicated that no, it has not improved. And so as an average, it's about an 89%. Yet overall, yes, people think things have improved on these three buckets since last spring. And so, again, I've sat here and I've said we're not perfect. We know that, and there's areas to improve, and we'll try. So we tried to tease out some themes from the responses. And again, these are from families, but one of the things that families felt was a positive was that there's been an increase in communication. And I think that's happened at every single level, from the teacher to the family, from the school to the family, from the district to the families. And so, again, I think that it's been increased communication. It's also been done in multiple languages, which came through in some of the feedback that we got, and that's appreciated. We are, just as an aside, going to transition to it's called a Remind, is a new app, and I pushed out a couple messages. Most people now receive information on their phones and via text, so it doesn't allow necessarily for long, eloquent emails or anything to that effect, but that's how people are seeing information. So Remind is a new communication platform that we have, and we're going to keep promoting that, and that will become an agenda item hopefully in the near future. I just wanted to let the committee know. Another thing that the families were effusive about, and they named names, which was terrific. Our staff are amazing, and they're caring, and they're going way above and beyond for our kids. And the families that responded overwhelmingly appreciated the fact that they understand that this is not what teachers signed up for. This is not what anyone signed up for, but that our staff are working very, very hard to support the needs of all kids. Some of the deltas or feedback that has emerged as a theme, the live instruction on remote days at the middle school and high school. So let me clarify what that, when students are remote on the remote side of hybrid, they're not necessarily engaging with the teacher in real time. And I think you just heard that tonight. That's the live streaming pilot. So that's one of the ways we're trying to address that feedback. Students are given work, we're advancing the curriculum, but they miss that sort of contact with an adult. This is class sizes is an issue. It's an issue when we're in regular times as well. One of the things that's happened, particularly at the elementary level, is that sometimes when students are either forced to quarantine or parents keep kids home, they go on to the remote side of hybrid, and the class size goes significantly higher. So we're looking at potentially trying to address that creatively with some staff movement to remedy that class size. It's hard to predict where it's going to happen and when. That's the whole, it's an unknown. And the other emerging theme was connectivity, just internet connection. And so when we were talking about this last week, I think in the city, Comcast had an issue. And then prior to vacation, I think Google went down for a morning. And so, I think Adriana Mendez-Sheldon's been doing yeoman's work trying to, we have hotspots that the tech department is providing to families, but we're trying to make sure that kids have access while they're at home. All the Chromebooks are now in. Every student that needed a Chromebook has one, but if you don't have the internet, you're unable to do the work. And so we're still, that's a real, it was a concern that emerged, and so we're trying to address that concern for everybody. We had a meeting this morning with principals and Ms. Mendez-Sheldon. We still have the COVID needs tracker that she alluded to in a previous meeting. And so if connectivity is an issue, we're trying to address it through that. The staff questions, the success for this year, the challenges, which are many, and what are the solutions? And so we had 125 staff respond to us. Some of the positives were the advances in technology and integration. I think we all agree that
That's a plus.
I mean, take advantage of a crisis, right? Our tech skills have improved dramatically. One of the amazing things, I think, as a district is the collaboration that's occurring. So, for example, today, every grade level meets district-wide remotely. And so they have an opportunity to talk through curriculum, needs, ideas, etc. every week as a group. And so there's horizontal conversations that are occurring virtually that never happened before, and also then vertical conversations. So that has been really something that I think when we emerge out of the pandemic is something that we want to try to make sure we maintain. The safety protocols, we did get some positive feedback because there has been, our protocols have been followed. But one of the other reason for this is that the people, when the staff was asked for challenges, no one is saying they don't feel safe. So we took that, the folks that analyzed the data, as a pretty significant win. Are people anxious? Are people nervous? Yes. It wasn't written to us. So I think it's a testament to the back-to-school planning that all the schools did. And we're managing a pandemic, and people feel it didn't emerge as a concern. So I think it's a testament, as I said, to the planning that allowed us to come back. Staff deltas were student engagement, and that's been, that sound like a broken record. Meeting the students' emotional needs. We had a lot of, our staff want to do more for kids, and they feel bad that they can't. And so that was a theme that emerged. Another theme that emerged is parent expectations from staff. So one of the things that's happening is the staff are now teaching, and the students are at home, and so parents are hovering, if you will, and trying to be helpful to teachers, but it may not necessarily be well received. And so we're trying to manage parent expectations as it relates to allowing teachers to teach. And the other thing that emerged is people are tired. It's a real thing to have to every day think about how am I going to meet the needs of students, wearing a mask, engaging with kids both in front of me and at home. What problems may or may not come up during the course of the day. And we have to understand, and I think this room does, but all of our staff are doing other things outside of teaching and managing their lives and going to grocery stores, raising their own kids. And so nothing, as you know, is routine, and so it's exhausting. So that was an emerging theme, and I want to recognize that as best we can, we'll do anything we can to try to support all staff, not just teachers, because our school nurses, our secretaries, paraprofessionals, the central office team is everyone's working really, really hard. So, we asked these questions of people. I wanted to share the results with the committee. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crowley. Dr. Wells, and then Ms. Moran.
So, can you break down the results by elementary, middle, high school for the parents' response? I was wondering if you saw any difference in sort of.
It was an anonymous. I think we can break it down by like grade or elementary that way.
It just might be useful to see if there's any
Can't do that.
there's any difference between
Right.
how the parents reacted based on where their children were. The other thing I'm thinking, because we'll probably have to do this survey again, is because I think the teachers might be feeling about the parents' expectations, but I'm not sure, whether it's only because there's a 10% population, just looking at the thing that are unsatisfied, and they may be the most vocal. And so I'm wondering if in the next survey you ask, something about how did the school expectation go for the parents in terms of things. So it may show that, the parents, understanding the situation were more responsive than I think the teachers might be seeing. And it'd be just, could be useful for the teachers. So asking some kind of question like that of parents, how did this year's education go, meet your expectations with all what was going on?
Okay.
But, and I think, I think the staff fatigue, what I would suggest, and, the administration can think about ways to support the staff. So I can just give some, so at the facility where I work at, what we did is, to support the frontline staff that work in patients, other people other regions of the hospital would provide care packages to the school or to the unit and drop it off, things like that. Think about some ways, and maybe involve the PTOs. Some appreciation days and things like that. Just to sort of lift people's spirits. Things we can do as a school committee, if there's something we can do, but maybe have a task force, for lack of a better term, but get some people together and think of some ideas that that would help improve the staff morale.
Thank you, Dr. Wells.
Thank you.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quickly, I did get a message from Woburn Public Media regarding the technical difficulties this evening, and I've been informed that we're now live streaming on Woburn Public Media's YouTube, which brings me to, the term pivot. The school district's pivoted a lot over the last year, and I think it's a good time to give a shout out to Andrew, who's in our tech room tonight, as well as Lauren Coleman, who just showed up, and Brian of Woburn Public Media, who pivoted and got us out on YouTube tonight to get some of the meeting to the public awareness. So I just wanted to give them a good shout out for everything that Woburn Public Media is doing for the school district. To Dr. Crowley's presentation, dedicated staff working with students, and perhaps under Ms. Cormier's special ed subcommittee last week, I know Dr. B shared a moment where he was recognized by families in the community in that district, as well as a moment shared by our special ed director, Ms. Ryan. So I think you're absolutely right, Dr. Crowley, and to Dr. Wells' point, people are getting recognized. I think long ago, Dr. Crowley, you asked about kindness and caring. We know it's out there. I know Dr. B expressed it last week, as did Maureen. So if people have experiences out there, or teachers have something they'd like to share, please let us know about it. We know what's going on. We want to hear about, the heartfelt stories instead of Desi wants us to do this, Desi wants us to do that, and the governor's pulling the strings over here, and we're trying to do this. We know what's going on, and looking at these surveys, we're asking people what they'd like us to do, and we're doing the best we can. So as far as, your comments, the dedicated staff, a story just shared with myself and Mr. McGuire up at the high school, how we did a home visit, and the child was having difficulties, as you said, with, the connectivity of his laptop, his Chromebook, and they got it all together. And this was over the break. So to the people that are watching tonight, there was no real break. I mean, these people still trudged through whatever was going on for, as you said, Dr. Crowley, the dedicated staff working with the students, and Michelle, Andriana's group working with families as well. So I wanted to make sure people, please share your good stories with us so we know what's going on out there. To Dr. Wells' point, I've seen a couple of things on Twitter. There are organizations out there that are trying to stop by the schools and just like you said, John, just try to boost their spirits and cheer them up during these difficult times. So thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Mulrennan. Mrs. Chisholm?
I was going to say something about what Mr. Mulrennan said, but unfortunately, because of COVID, people aren't allowed in the buildings. They're not supposed to be coming in, so it's kind of a catch-22. And one mom was like, well, the teachers leave their cars open. Well, do we want to do that and have people dropping things in cars? And so people try, but there's those obstacles through this whole thing that has made everything that you think was simple a huge deal. But I mean, it's nice that people are, thanking them and want to do this. It's like having two cooks in a kitchen, though, when we have parents home and trying to help out, and it gets a little bit frustrating. And I know they're just trying to try, but sometimes it's had more times for teachers to try to interact with that parent instead of trying to deal with the students. So everybody is just getting frustrated. Everybody's tired, and everybody wants to go back to normal and send their kids off on the bus and see them at 2:40 in the afternoon. But I mean, it is really good. But I do want to shout out to the custodians. It's out of your list of all the people.
Yeah.
We didn't mention them, so we don't want to kill them.
Yeah.
They've been here since day one, and
Right.
we really appreciate everything they do each and every day. But, we'll get through this. We're getting there. The light is shining a little bit brighter every day. So hopefully school will be in session, and we won't have to worry about all this.
Thank you, Ms. Chisholm. Mr. Lipset?
Just a couple things, just to sort of follow up on what Mr. Moran and Dr. Wells and Ms. Chisholm were saying. We have seen some hovering going on, but I think it's also important, and now that we're live streaming again, to say to parents that I think when you see something awesome going on in the classroom, teachers appreciate hearing that as well. I mean, I haven't been hovering certainly, but I've been, if I've been in the room while something was going on with my son that I appreciated. I remember, I sent an email to his art teacher one day because she was using a resource that I thought was fantastic and was doing a great job with it. Just because, this is uncharted waters for our teachers and our staff. And knowing that people are paying attention can be overwhelming, but if that's communicated in a positive way as well, that can really boost spirits right away. It's hard to explain how much one positive email can shift a day or a week in this particular setting. So I encourage anyone listening, if you see something great going on in your child's classroom, just shoot the teacher a quick note. It means the world. And the other question I just wanted to ask quickly on this was, now this went to all families, or was it just hybrid students?
All families.
Okay. A little while ago, or a previous meeting in the fall, we had talked about working towards a survey for Virtual Academy as well. And I think it might be useful, given some of the issues that were brought to us in the fall, to ask these questions more specifically of Virtual Academy, to see what improvements have been made there as well. I don't know if that's something that, I know this was an anonymous survey, we can't necessarily break it down that way. But it might be useful to check in again with our Virtual Academy families.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lipset. Any further questions on the parent survey? I speak on behalf of the school committee. I really appreciate when the administration identifies problems and themes, and I look forward to seeing how, you brilliant people come up with ways to alleviate the, live instruction, class size, and connectivity. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I always appreciate when you, look at the challenges as well as all the positive changes. Okay, moving on to review of wages for certain staff members. There's been a change in the law, Massachusetts General Law Chapter 151, Section 1. And Mr. Alcanada, are you going to present on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So I passed out to all of you prior to the meeting the rates as of January 1st, 2020 for selected positions, and then what the proposed rates for January 1st, 2021 would be. Some of this, the ones that will be impacted are the daily sub rate for paraprofessionals. We need to move that from $80 to $85 a day so that we will hit the minimum wage of $13.50 that was increased on January 1st, 2021. Of course, that would also apply for secretaries, custodians, and then teachers without degree at $85. And the other matter would be teachers with degrees. If we're going to continue the delta of $10 difference between paraprofessionals and teachers, then we would need to raise that to $95 a day. So again, the minimum wage went from $12.75 to $13.50 an hour. So some of these things are mandated, but we would like a vote of the school committee. And just to note, on January 1st next year, the minimum wage will increase to $14.25, and then on January 1st, 2023, it will increase again to $15 an hour. So next year and the year after, we'll probably be back doing this to increase the daily rates for those positions.
Thank you, Ms. Alcanada. I'm bringing this to our attention. I did not even perceive that it would impact our employees. Dr. Wells.
Yeah, what percentage of teachers without degrees are we using as substitutes? Are we using a lot, or?
I don't
know a
off
percentage.
the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Essentially, paraprofessional substitutes, is that?
Teachers without degrees.
Right.
Daily sub without degrees.
Yeah,
Not many.
Not many.
Right, that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
because years back, we tried to go away from that, and, this year obviously is a strange year, but in general, I think the school committee has, tried to state that we'd rather have people with degrees being substitutes, and so I just wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit. The other question is how does our teacher substitutes pay comparable to what other communities, or should we be looking at that, I guess, is the other question.
Yeah, from what I understand, I think that we're in the ballpark. I think that $90 to $95 I'm sorry, $90 to $95 a day for substitute teachers is in the ballpark. I think that we're not the highest, and I certainly don't think we're the lowest.
No.
I think you're absolutely right. And statistically, we're right in the middle,
Yeah.
so.
And then at some point, looking at some of, the substitutes, when we get up to $15, I think we have to do an analysis whether it would be better to have additional staff and not necessarily, with that cost benefit, to have like a floating, custodian, say, so that, they could work, having one floating custodian rather than paying somebody that doesn't know the system, come in as a substitute, things like that, as we get closer to the $15. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Wells.
What action do you need, Mr.
I do think that the school committee should take a vote on this to approve the rates as presented.
So
Make
this
that
is
motion?
this is just a motion to implement a law that's been passed. This is not a raise or a union
I think-
issue. This is simply just implementing the law. So
Madam
do I have a
Chairman,
motion?
I think actually, because it is a law, I think the
Yeah.
only thing we really have to, is the $10 differential. That's probably the only thing, because that's the thing that's not covered.
That is absolutely most certain that needs to be
Yes.
done.
Right.
Okay,
So,
so do I have a motion?
So moved.
So move it. Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. The ayes have it, 7-0, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alcanada, I appreciate it. Okay, moving on to, sorry, Woburn Public, really small print. Woburn Public Schools and COVID-19 updates, Mr. Superintendent?
Sure. First of all, if anyone is listening, and I appreciate what Mr. Lipset said to the families, I want to thank the families for communicating with the schools. I talked about communication from the schools to families, but as it relates to COVID especially, families are doing a great job communicating to the schools. And so if I just want to take that opportunity to express gratitude for that happening. I also just wanted to let the committee know of a few different organizational things that have occurred over the past 6 weeks. One of the things we did was to sort of deputize school nurses to become the liaison to families rather than have it flow only through Mary Heater, nurse leader. And so the school nurses have really taken on a lot more responsibility. And we created internally a data dashboard that I am now able to see in real time any information that I want as it relates to COVID. At any school, whether students are positive, awaiting diagnosis, or close contact. And that allows me to report to Ms. Crowley or to the Board of Health or to whomever our numbers in real time, or to the city. And so that was created by Courtney Young, Jed Judkins, Maureen Ryan, and myself just sitting in a room. We had a problem and we needed a solution, and we came up with this data dashboard. And I should, at the next meeting, it does have names on it, so I need to do screenshot. I don't want to violate any laws, but I want you to see it. It's really powerful, and it's a tribute to the team here. That said, a couple updates as it relates to more updates. Testing for staff has been extended. The city of Woburn is still going to do that for us on Friday afternoons. That's been really well received. We still have spots open every week. So that being said, I had a conversation with Dr. Conti in Burlington, and we are going to open it up to a small group of Burlington educators. He's working that out. But in recognition that we're all in this together, let's solve problems together and help each other. So I want the committee to know that relationship has formed, and I think this Friday they're going to try to have a few Burlington educators take advantage of the infrastructure that we've set up at a cost. I don't want to, it's so.
Charge them for parking.
Yeah. But the other thing as it relates to testing is this Abbott Binex Rapid Test, and so that is going to come out. Staff and families were sent an email with information about this because it requires consent on the family side and the staff side. What that does, there's a training that the school nurses have gone through. It will allow for us to do a rapid test in school of any staff or student who is showing any signs of symptoms. And so that, again, is going to be coming within the next week to the Woburn Public Schools. Another piece of testing is this pool testing that you might have heard about, pushed out at the state level last week. We were on a webinar Tuesday morning to learn a little bit more about it. The state is suggesting that they would pay for 6 weeks of this pool testing, and then would ask cities and towns to absorb the cost thereafter. We don't know what that cost is yet, and so it's hard to make an informed decision. And I also, there's a couple districts that have been doing this, Medford and Watertown specifically, and I have a call tomorrow with their superintendents to learn what it looks like in those districts, because I would like to learn, let's learn from people that have gone through it and before we make any determination. But I just want the committee to know I had to submit interest to the state by January 15th, so I did say yes, we were interested in learning more.
Thank you.
On an amazing note, the vaccine is in Woburn. The first responders have been begun being vaccinated this week. And on Friday, our school nurses are going to be vaccinated. And so I think that's, when you talk about light at the end of the tunnel, I think it's,
Shining.
it's coming. And I'm really excited that it may offer us hope to get back to what we do best, which is in school, in-person learning. We did the pivot last, the remote out of the vacation, and I think the pivot was successful. The students, the remote was handled well, and the pivot back has been successful. I think it's disruptive. I'm not going to suggest that it's not, but it did allow for some dust to settle and essentially allowed for a 2-week window so we could evaluate whether we can open and stay open. And so we feel comfortable that we made the right decision. I know that I've spoke to the Board of Health, Ms. Crowley, and we monitor the numbers every day, every hour of every day. I go to bed, I look, and I wake up and I look, and it's. But I think the city and the school system have a great working relationship. The Board of Health has been a tremendous partner with us, and so we continue along in the hybrid model, and we do have cases of COVID, and the majority of cases are, particularly at the elementary, it's a result of household contact. You've seen the data as it relates to COVID. We do have a couple high school students that work, so they've got tested because of work over vacation, tested positive. So, that's been what our findings. And so, again, I'm excited about the vaccine for nurses on Friday. So, this is, when you talk about fatigue, this has been something. So, I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
Thank you, Dr. Crowley. Yes, Dr. Wells.
So, one question. So we, and I think, obviously you made the right decision to have the break after people came back from the break, But the question, I was wondering, if you look at the data, did it look like, was there a surge that week, that we kind of, by doing this, it helped us? Because we have to think about if potentially we're doing this in February and April, what to do.
So the run up to the break, there was a surge.
Yep.
Going into the
Right.
break, there was there was an increase.
Right, yeah.
And I think that the feeling from the Board of Health, from Nurse Heater, was it's better to guard against people coming back, because people come back asymptomatic.
Right.
They've been with families. So we didn't flatten the curve entirely, but our numbers decreased.
And then with the rapid test, are you going to still, because I guess the question you have to decide, for the administration to set up is their policy. A rapid test is good, but it's not 100%, and so the question is, are you going to still follow a policy that if somebody's showing symptoms, they go home and the test is just a test? And, it's not used to decide somebody's going to stay at school or not stay at school, right? When they,
Yeah, so the quick answer is yes.
Okay.
Any student, we're encouraging
Right.
students and staff, if you're
Right.
not feeling well, don't even come to school.
Right.
If they're symptomatic, we're able to provide this test,
Right.
but it's still not the quote gold standard. That
Right.
PCR nasal
Right.
swab is the test that people would
Right.
then need to take. So
Okay. And then with regard to going back, because I think we always have to keep that in mind. Our ultimate goal is to get everybody back in the classroom, and we've got through one vacation. I think the administration maybe can update the school committee or through one of the subcommittees. What are the thoughts, where we're going? So, because if we're going to go back at some time this year, we have to do some planning, obviously, and things like that. And so,
I'm laughing because we had meetings today.
right, no, I'm sure
and,
you. But just sort of an update.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be extensive, but just say we had a meeting
Yeah.
and we're working on this and this and this.
Well, we will,
Yeah.
and absolutely include the committee.
Yeah.
And we talking today about it, and we really need to include teachers and, a lot
So
of people.
I guess that's what we
Right.
just need for the committee is an update. Here's the dialogue that's ongoing. Here's the people involved, and
Right.
here's what we're working on.
Yeah, and I guess we will, I will. It's going to be complicated,
Mhm.
and I just want the committee to know that, because it's not like you just flip a switch and everyone comes back. To get to the model where we are, we've moved a lot of people around, and created a virtual school, and moved people from that classroom teachers into a virtual
Right.
academy. And so if we come back, I don't know what, the state's probably going to tell us to keep the virtual academy.
Right.
So how do we do that and move people? So anyway, so we will absolutely do that.
Good luck.
Any further questions for Dr. Crowley on COVID update for the Woburn Public Schools? Seeing none. Bear with me, members. I just want, because the public was not able to listen in, I just want to tell the public that we voted on a proposal to send to DESE on for our spending the money of the Student Opportunity Act, and Ms. Sprague presented us with a proposal to spend this money on elementary school literacy initiative, reminding us that we have not really purchased a curriculum in about 20 years. And we voted 7-0 to send that over to DESE. There is no specific curriculum that we chose. It's just authorizing the administration to send that to DESE. We also received a update on our structured learning time regulation sent to us from DESE regarding a synchronous instruction, and we learned that we are in compliance with DESE's regulations. So I just wanted to make sure that the public is aware that those two things happened, because we were not able to live stream that. So thank you, members, for bearing with me. I think that's the only thing that people missed.
Madam Chair. If I may, Madam Chair, on
Sure,
that
thank you.
topic, I know due to coverage issues, I don't know if the school website could maybe include some of the presentations we saw tonight, just kind of get a link to it on the Woburn Public School website, those people that might be curious as to what was shown on the slides tonight. Is that possible, Dr. Crowley, Ms. Sprague?
Sure.
Yes.
That way, people will know what you just talked about, Ms. Crowley, so they
Thank
can
you.
see it.
Yes, there are two documents, the Woburn Public School Student Opportunity Act, which was Ms. Sprague's excellent presentation, and then Student Learning Time, which was also breaking down the ways in which the Woburn Public Schools is in fact compliant with the structured learning time, synchronous learning that DESE has obligated us to provide. So thank you. We can get those up
Thank
It's
you.
all right. We can ask the administration to get those up on the website. Thank you for bearing with me. Moving on to the SEAM Collaborative Annual Report, which is in your folders.
Move we accept it?
Second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion on accepting SEAM Collaborative Annual Report 2019-2020? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. This has been
Are you
accepted.
going to go for the chairmanship? I see the Superintendent Winchester is retiring.
Yeah, she's
so there's an
retiring.
opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those meetings that people, you know.
If you don't show up, you're the chairman?
Last guy there,
Yeah.
make sure you attend.
SEAM Collaborative does some great things for our students, so we appreciate your participation on that board. Moving on to student desk and chairs vote.
Sure, so
Dr.
just let me contextualize it, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Alcanada. You know, at the old Herald and at the old Wyman, they've kind of been a storage place for us, and it dawned on me that some students may not have us, you know, a place to sit and learn at home. And in thinking about a way to potentially provide that to them, I asked Dave Dunkley to inventory what was available, and we have sort of a draft plan to push out to at the elementary level, because it's, you know, it's smaller. Like, I wouldn't be able to sit on one of these desks or chairs, but before we wanted to get rid of school property, we wanted to put it before you. I think you might have the information.
I do.
Yeah.
There are 128 desks and chairs. And as you may know, that Chapter 30B, which is the procurement laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, requires the local jurisdiction to declare it to be surplus supplies, and if it's less than $10,000 on resale or salvage value, which it certainly is, then we can dispose of that surplus property/supplies with sound business practices, or in a manner in which the local jurisdiction sees fit. So that's what we would be asking, that this be on a vote of the school committee, be declared surplus supply of less than $10,000 in salvage or resale value.
Great. Do I have a Mrs. Chisholm?
I just want to
Sorry
make sure that
about
all
that.
elementary schools are covered, just so that people don't think we're giving away stuff, and then next year ordering stuff that we have to replace, that's all. Just every principal knows they have extra desks in their buildings, and we're not going to be looking for desks down the road. So, and then I'm fine with it, I just want to make sure that that's covered, so people don't come back and say, well, you gave away 130 desks, and now you're asking.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's all. Make sure that's clear.
Mr. Kissel?
And how are they being distributed or divvied up, I guess?
Yeah, so I deputized Rob Nickerson, principal at the Malcolm White, because he happened to be in a meeting.
Nice going, Rob.
And so each school will send out the same Google form to families to find out if people are interested. There's a couple pictures as well. And then we don't know how many people will be interested, and the principal, in consultation with the adjustment counselor, social worker, will try to prioritize to make sure that those with most need have the access.
Thank you, Dr. Crowley. Ms. Cormier?
If there's not as much interest as there are desks and chairs, what will we do with them after that?
I think we'll dispose of them.
Dr. Wells?
How did you make the determination of the value?
Well, we essentially took 10,000 divided by 128, given it be that, one unit, desk and chair, came to $78. And in our estimation, that nobody would pay us $78 for this desk and chair. They're not in bad condition, but they're certainly not brand new. So it was a sound business practice that we didn't think that we could get more than $78 per desk and chair.
Madam Chair, make a motion, we allow the administration to, what'd you say, Bob, dispose of
Yes.
per chapter.
Dispose of the surplus supplies and declare that it's less than $10,000 in sale resale or salvage value.
That's my motion, is hopefully Ms. McLeod got that from Mr. Alpanara, and that's the motion, Madam Chair. All right.
Okay, I have a motion to do.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Yes, Mr. Kissel?
I just, if, to Ms. Cormier's comment of if there is leftover, I'm assuming that they're in good enough shape to give to our kids, so at some point could be, without dragging it out too long, make them available to other, even another district or something that might, might not have
Sure.
the same thing. I mean, if we're working in this together,
Mhm.
we've done this a couple of times, I just hate to see 48 people come by and 80 desks left, and, we say, well, it was chucking because no one wants them from Woburn, so. But it'd be
Right.
there's no value to us per se by selling them off, but maybe just offering them up to some other groups or just something.
That's completely doable, yes.
Sounds like the administration should update the committee as to, how the progress is.
Yeah,
and then
we'll,
we
we'll,
can-
we'll let you know.
Yeah, thank you. And Dr. Wells?
Yeah, so just getting back, we haven't made a determination about the old Wyman, and there's been lots of talk about potential uses. And so are we going to say, say we decide to utilize it for, are we going to say, oh, we have to buy
128 desks?
100 more desks? That's, I guess that's the other thing, we have to take into account. I don't know the shape of the desk and whether, you would use them in a classroom, or so, I just don't know.
Well, I think the way that I understand
Yeah.
it is that when the Hurled and the Wyman closed,
Yeah.
any piece of furniture that was, could be salvaged and used in another school,
They all went out.
they all went out to different schools. And so I don't perceive these to be something that would be used.
If we go, okay.
Right.
I think we just have to be clear on that, because, okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wells. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion passes. The administration can now, we've declared that the 128 desks are a surplus, and the administration can dispose as them in best business practices.
Yep, sound business practices.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to subcommittee reports, finance, Mrs. Chisholm.
We did meet on January 7th at 3:30 here at the conference room with Joyce. In attendance was Superintendent Dr. Matt Crowley, Dr. Baldessari, Assistant Superintendent Robert Alpanara, Patty McKinnon, and school committee members Dr. John Wells, Andrew Lipset, and myself. The discussion was on the data sheets for employees, and Assistant Superintendent Bob Alpanara indicated to the Finance Subcommittee that the FY21 data sheets had been delayed so that we had an opportunity to verify all the information presented on those sheets. He will continue to address any deficiencies he encounters and will present a full report to the subcommittee for our request that we'll follow up on that, making sure everybody's up to date with everything. And Mr. Alpanara presented a workflow of payroll and human resources processes that we is currently implementing to make sure the systems is more efficient. And he is also introducing an internal management tool referred to as a PAF, Personnel Action Form, that will be more effective in documenting payroll and demographic modifications. And the meeting adjourned at 4:25.
Thank you, Mrs. Chisholm. No list of bills and balance of accounts?
No, we didn't know.
Okay.
This was short and sweet.
Fantastic. The resources and personnel have not met, is that correct?
No, I talked to the superintendent, and one of the issues upcoming this year is discussions about the old Wyman School, so he's going to let me know when he's ready to have a meeting to discuss that.
Thank you, Dr. Wells, for staying on top of that. Personnel Subcommittee, Ms. Mulroney, you have not met, correct?
Have not met. We're going to try for January 21 at 9 a.m. here at the Joyce, if members are agreeable to that, and as well as administrations.
Thank you, and it sounds like Dr. Wells had a question about substitutes and degrees. Maybe that could be discussed. Curriculum and data trends, Mr. Lipset.
Yes, we met yesterday at 3:30 p.m. Remotely. In attendance were myself, Mr. Kissel, Dr. Wells, Ms. Cormier, Ms. Crowley, as well as Ms. Sprague, Ms. Callanan, and Ms. Donovan from the high school. Much of what we talked about has already been covered by Ms. Sprague tonight, including the Student Opportunity Act and student learning time regulations. The other piece of what we talked about were the proposed courses. Ms. Callanan brought to us proposed courses for the high school. Did you want to talk
want me to
a
go
little
through the
bit of those,
list?
or, I mean, if you have
So,
a,
yeah, so I can just go through the titles of them. If you have questions, I can go back and give you more detail. For English Language Arts, there's a dramatic literature course. For history and social science, there's Facing History in Ourself. It's also one that's going to be really popular called Sports History. And in Science and Technology, there's an AP Physics C Mechanics course, an Introduction to Electrical Engineering, and a Project Lead the Way Human Body Systems Biotechnology Innovation Pathway course. In Visual and Performance Arts, there's a Social Theater Skills program. And in Wellness, there is a Leadership Community Wellness program, which will be, it's an every other day course. It's a one semester course, so it's 1.2 credits. So those are the 8 new courses they're proposing adding. It does not require additional staff, so that there's not a budgetary impact as far as hiring staff.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
and so I will make a motion that the committee accept Ms. Callahan's proposed course list.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. The ayes have it. Thank you. I mean, even during this time, we're still expanding and creating new courses. I want to express my gratitude towards Ms. Callahan, and thank you, Mr. Lipset,
And we adjourned
for
at
taking that on.
4:28.
Great.
And Madam
good.
Chairman, just,
Yes.
you're congratulating Ms. Callahan, and I agree we should, but we should also recognize that these courses were instigated by the teachers. They came up with the ideas and
Oh,
so
okay.
forth, so I think it's really important to, recognize their thoughts about, where they want to bring new classes to the students, so.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. I appreciate that.
I also actually,
Feedback.
if I might,
Of course,
just wanted to
Mr.
add, I really appreciate the addition, in particular, of the Facing History in Ourselves course. Given both very recent events and the events over the summer, we had a lot of discussion over diversity initiatives, looking at our own institutional responses to racial injustice, and I think, a course, I'm very familiar with Facing History in Ourselves, and a course like that, I think, goes a long way towards improving our offerings for our students and our families, on how to approach difficult issues like that in the classroom, and so I really appreciate that as an addition as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lipset. And the resolution that you brought to the committee and passed, that also aligns with the school committee's resolution in that regard, too. Okay, thank you. Moving on to student services, I'm sorry, policy, Mr. Kissel. No, I knew it. Nope.
Well, I'm going to say we had not met, but I will be speaking with Dr. Baldessari tomorrow to talk about some policy topics and setting up a meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kissel.
Well,
He does speak.
Student Service and Achievement Subcommittee, Ms. Cormier.
Thank you. We met on Thursday, January 7th, via Zoom. In attendance were myself, Dr. Baldessari, Maureen Ryan, Ellen Crowley, and Michael Mulrennan. The meeting was called to order at 9 a.m. Under SSA, we had an update on English learners. They're initiating the Cohort D implemented on February 8th. There was a meeting held last week with Erin Cooper, Jessica Callahan, members of the WTA, and other content teachers. This will require transportation routes to be analyzed, and Erin Cooper will follow up with the middle and elementary principals. The parent EL classes have started. Class A started January 5th, which is full with 25 participants. It's 15 weeks long. In the evenings, same with Class B, which started on the 7th. There is a potential for a third class, as there are 28 parents on the waiting list. We don't have funds currently, though Dr. Baldessari may be able to move some funds from the supply line of the grant. Madam Chair, Ellen Crowley asked regarding the curriculum, is this language only or also more information regarding like culture and various sort of logistical things, accessing services around Woburn, and Dr. Baldessari said he was going to consider that. As we have mentioned, access testing started on the 7th, going through May 20th. Usually goes until February vacation, though it needed to be extended due to cohorts, hybrid, virtual category, etc. There will be no testing during the MCAS weeks, no penalty for those that are not tested. Erin Cooper will be taking a leave scheduled April 7th, and she will return in the fall. Dr. Baldessari will be overseeing EL at this time and also plans to request a full-time EL director position in the fall. An equitable communication, translation, and interpretation policy proposal is forthcoming. The purpose would be to ensure translation of WPS materials into any language that is spoken by at least 5% of our EL population. Currently, we have 39.4% Portuguese, 24.2% Spanish, 6% Haitian Creole, and Arabic is at 3.8%. This includes report cards, progress reports, newsletters, emails, as well as translators for events and certain parental encounters. LPAC met on December 15th by invite to work on developing parent leadership. The next meeting will be in February of 2021. There's an open position for a full-time EL para at the Malcolm White. Erin Cooper and Dr. Baldessari are visiting the international school via the YMCA located at the United Methodist Church on Main Street and meeting with the director, Eileen Doherty. And Erin Cooper is going to provide professional development for admin assistants on inputting correct information into the Redeker system, as correctly entered data leads to more appropriate funding. 3 grants were received over the break. Fund code 298 for early childhood targeted special education program improvement and safety for about $3,500. This will contribute to systemic improvement in integration of technology to support data collection and analysis, as well as progress monitoring to support instruction. All funding will be used to purchase iPads and the ACE ABA software system for learners with autism, enabling BCBAs and special educators to assess, teach, and evaluate progress using evidence-based procedures. Secondly is Fund Code 274, the Special Education Improvement Grant, about $27,000, which will be used to purchase 75 iPads for the Special Education Early Childhood Education Program. Third, the SNAP Outreach Partner Reimbursement Grant from the Department of Transitional Assistance for fiscal year 2021. It's a maximum reimbursement of $5,000 if the district submits 30 SNAP applications during the 2021 calendar year. Dr. Baldessari has met with the UMass Medical Medicaid Billing, our new vendor, working on bolstering reimbursable nursing, counseling, and ABA services in order to maximize reimbursement and improve programming, supervision for ABA services, and Maureen Ryan is analyzing what would be involved there. This would improve services while also having the bonus effect of bringing in money which would not go directly to the school system but actually goes to the city. And will also increase services for students that might otherwise have needed to go to out-of-district placements, therefore minimizing the cost for the city and the schools. The Intervention Academy at the Boys and Girls Club and YMCA, 6 students have entered and more were approved on the 6th. The return to school planning, many students haven't been in school since March 2020, leading to loss of good habits. Working on thoughtful transitions to help the kids and adults return successfully. We're planning assessments on return and then reassessing at the half and end of year, and there may be stimulus money forthcoming for summer learning to close the gap. Under social emotional learning, the Respond program for 10th graders covers healthy relationships, dating violence, and other related topics. There will be participation by the school adjustment counselors, and exit tickets will be provided for students in order to connect with guidance following the program if needed. The NAN project will be presenting on suicide awareness. It's a 70-minute class for grade 9 during wellness this semester, and as above, the adjustment counselors will be present, parents can opt out, and then exit tickets will be provided again for connection with guidance. Under engagement, there are concerns about high school students who are not engaging. Progress reports were sent out on the 8th, and scheduling considerations are being filled for the 2021-2022 school year. Match training for 3 new employees by Rosemary Dunneman and Melissa Plowman. We have Amanda, Roby, and Stephanie, who are GAIN, ACE social workers, and a high school adjustment counselor. The BARC support system is evaluated daily. This is what Rosemary Donovan uses to sort of monitor for any topics that might come up in student accounts, whether it's self-harm. And it's unfortunately difficult to collect data on how often these adverse events are prevented because they're prevented, so we can't really say how well, but clearly so far so good. family and community engagement. Premier Supply, owned by David Cullen in Woburn, they made holiday donations to families, $5,000 donation for toys, Market Basket gift cards, Target gift cards, and warm clothes to 75 families, which equals 90 students, via the list generated by Woburn Public Schools. These donations were picked up by the families at the warehouse or delivered on Christmas Day by Dr. Crowley and Adriana, I believe. This included a check to Eversource for a family who had a late utility bill. The Boys and Girls Club donated to the Supervised Learning Center families. All needs were met, so therefore the rest of the list was donated to Burlington because Woburn was completed. Student Engagement Task Force, 8 families at the Harold Wyman, 2 of which had tech issues that were causing excused absences. There have been 52 home visits this school year by Adriana. The mayor's office has approved 15 additional students for the Supervised Learning Center at 6th grade, and is also providing COVID testing for the Boys Club and YMCA staff. The COVID Needs Tracker has 532 entries as of January 5th, 2021. The needs include food assistance, low-cost internet, and supervised learning. SPED update. Maureen Ryan notes that we need to provide normalcy to the extent we can. For professional development, she's working closely with curriculum coordinator Courtney Young, providing significant investment in our staff and students between Wilson Reading Foundations, a 3-part series with Sarah Ward, and Bonnie Singer's Architects for Learning 5-part series, and Universal Design for Learning training with Emily Pat. We're looking for a SPED teacher in Virtual Academy. We're having issues with staffing due to COVID. It's one of the largest areas of concern, and continues to be a challenge as they can't be predicted whether someone is going to need to go out or how long that absence is going to last. We're managing COVID compensatory claims as they come in. Currently, there are a good handle on the gaps and where they are, and we're in pretty good shape. Evaluations by the Pearson Dolls Plus Library digital platform. There are small setbacks due to staffing and unexpected leaves as above, but the ability to do assessments remotely has been very helpful. In other technology updates, iPads and Rise and PALS programs have been useful for different apps, such as Touch Chat iPads and the Rise to foster a culture where a nonverbal student who uses this has access to communicate with staff and peers. SLP and OT for next year, we're collecting data related to service providers. There's a strong need for OT and speech pathologists for high-quality services and lower caseloads. We want to reduce reliance on contractors, which not only reduces the fiscal impact, but also strengthens the program. Maureen and her team are working on improving data and also the physical space for the SPED department. The tiered focus monitoring visit is planned for the end of February 2021. And she's working on the extended school year planning, what it'll look like, what the scope will be, remote, in person, etc. CPAC was not able to join us that day, but Maureen Ryan did mention that she sent information on a free parent webinar from the SEAM Collaborative regarding insurance coverage for behavioral health treatments, accessing treatment under both private and public insurance. This will be via Zoom on the 19th of January at 6 p.m., and anyone who is interested in attending can email a.cataldo@seamcollaborative.org. And we adjourned at 10:30 a.m.
Wow. Thank you, Ms. Cormier. You don't really have the luxury of cutting short your minutes.
I don't know what to cut. There's just,
It's like ripping.
Yes.
What's going on, so I really
A lot of things.
really appreciate your minutes. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Cormier? No. Thank you. That was
Bueno.
so much going on. And thank you, Dr. Baldessari, for always attending those meetings. It's just really good stuff in there.
Madam Chairman, I just want
Yes.
to give a shout out to, there was Christmas in Mobile. There was over, like, I think it was 97 families. They went to schools and they got some kids' names, and parents came out and donated wrap gifts for these kids. And it was kind of sad when you see some of the list of kids wanting just new pajamas and socks. You know, when you have kids asking for new,
Clothes,
Xboxes
yeah.
and stuff like that. So it was really nice, and it was Kathleen Donovan that did it. She did an amazing job bringing packages and Christmas to about 100 families. So we have a great kid community that steps up for these kids. So.
Thank you, Ms. Chisholm, for saying that. There was also a discussion, of course, at SSA. Everything happened there about just the generosity of the community. So, thank you. Yeah, so that was correspondence. I just want to mention one thank you to Ms. McCann, a Linscott parent, who brought to our attention the need for a before-school program at the Linscott. I forwarded this to the administration. Certainly, we would look forward to entertaining something like that in the budget cycle. Mr. Lipset?
Not regard if you're still talking about
go ahead.
the CDO. I just also wanted to publicly thank Dr. Crowley for his communication to the community following the events at the Capitol last week. I think one of the most important roles of education is helping our students through tough events that happen in our world and our country. And I thought your email was heartfelt and well written, and I appreciated the inclusion of learning links as well for families. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lipset.
Appreciate it.
Any more correspondence? Yes, Dr. Crowley.
I have a correspondence. A letter was handed to me prior to vacation, and I reluctantly accepted it. Wendy Sprague is going to retire at the end of this school year, June 30,
Denied.
2021. And
No.
That was my response. But I wanted the committee to know this. We'll push forward with, obviously this year. I have no doubt Wendy's going to work until probably till next year, even though she won't be paid. But it's, and we'll talk more about it and highlight her career. It's been a remarkable career, not just in Woburn. But I just wanted to publicly announce that to the committee and thank Wendy Sprague for her dedication to the city of Woburn and to the students.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the school committee, I begrudgingly accept
Could you stamp that return to sender, Dr. Crowley?
I tried.
Shred it?
the superintendent's information regarding, the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. And, there will be a time when I certainly address Ms. Sprague's career, but I, someone that's dedicated her basic entire life to the Woburn Public Schools, I'm sure there'll be more conversations. So I just wanted to accept that correspondence.
Madam Chairman, just
And Dr. Wells?
congratulations on your retirement, but the ship rolls on. Could the superintendent sort of maybe a upcoming meeting give us an outline of, the plans to fill that position, whether we're going to try to do an overlap, things like that?
Sure. So
Yeah.
I
You can do it now if you want, or you can wait.
I will wind up posting the position quickly. I think we all learned, we're very lucky to have Mr. Alcanada with us.
Lucky to be here.
But when we know people are retiring,
Right.
it's valuable. So if we can hire in a timely manner, and it allows for a smoother transition, so that would be the thinking.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad that Ms. Sprague got her early childhood literacy project up and running before it's time to go. So, anyways, okay. So we will certainly have a time to celebrate Ms. Sprague's career at Woburn. Moving on to upcoming events. Anyone going to any social gatherings?
Just announced the mayor's state of the city.
Yeah, I am told that the mayor's state of the city is going to be January 19th. I don't know exactly the mechanics of it, so I believe that the city council will be meeting in person and he'll be addressing the city council. That's really all I know at this point, but I'll certainly update the committee as I hear things. It's usually a very good event, very helpful, and so we'll just see. Yes, of course, Dr. Crowley.
On Monday, Martin Luther King Day, there isn't I believe I forwarded the registration link. There's a celebration of Dr. King. Our Embrace students at the high school are really going to be the stars of the show. It's from, I believe, it's at 11 to 12:30. I forwarded it to you, but I just wanted to
Of course.
remind
thank you.
everybody. And it's via Zoom.
Thank you. Future agenda items.
Madam Chairman.
Of course, Dr.
One of the courses that was mentioned was an innovation pathway course. I wonder if we could get an update on that program. one of the things I really want them to highlight is, one of the goals of that was to involve students that necessarily weren't going to college and things like that. I think there was specific goals for students. And I really like to see if they're meeting that need and so forth, and how that's going, and especially, in COVID, things like that. So
That sounds like the job for some kind of curriculum subcommittee.
or we could have a good presentation, either one. Whatever the administration decides is easier to do.
Okay,
But we just should get an update.
Yeah.
absolutely, thank you, Dr.
And then the other thing that I think still on the table is, we had the superintendent gave his presentation of goals, but I think it was left that he was looking at one of the goals
Yep.
to tweak, and I think maybe we should just
Come
get the
back.
final thing so we can give a final vote on that.
Yes, thank you. We'll put that on the actual next agenda, just to get that done.
And then
Thank
the other
you.
thing, if the students in their newsletter tried to do a little poll, the turnout wasn't as great as the one that you had, but maybe, I don't know, it might be worthwhile at the high school to look sort of the students' opinion again, your older students, and it might be something the administration, Mr. Callahan, would like to see is, the same questions you're asking, what are the students' opinion of things in Title I? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. No more future agenda items. Okay, great. We are moving into executive session tonight, members. We have a strategy and collective bargaining regarding ongoing discussions with all bargaining units. So in addition, we need to discuss one issue regarding a non-union negotiation issue. So I'll accept a motion to go
I'll make
into
a motion to
executive
go into
session.
executive session for that reason. Roll call.
Any discussion on that motion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms.
Dr.
Chisholm.
Fowler.
Yes.
Ms. Cormier.
In favor.
Mr. Lipset.
Yes.
Mr. Kissel.
Yes.
Mr. Morenin.
Yes.
Dr. Wells.
Yes.
Ms. Crowley.
Yes.